Welcome to my channel Alien Signal. The first time the phrase was recorded, no one in the Galactic Archive understood its significance. It was logged as a trivial audio fragment, background noise, categorized under non-threatening cultural expression, from a newly contacted species known as humans. The recording came from a mining outpost on the edge of neutral space, where a small crew of humans had been contracted to repair a malfunctioning gravitic drill owned by the Catastrophic Consortium. At timestamp 3 hours 11 minutes and 27 seconds, a human engineer, designation Marcus Hale, was heard saying, "Hey, hold my beer." 3 seconds later, the drill, which had been deemed irreparable by 3 separate alien engineering guilds, roared back to life, operating at 312% of its rated capacity. 7 seconds after that, it exploded. But not before completing its assigned extraction cycle. The Kayathari filed a complaint. The Galactic Safety Commission filed a warning. The Galactic Archive filed it as irrelevant. That was their first mistake. Over the next decade, similar incidents began to surface across different sectors. A human pilot, grounded due to a failing antimatter stabilizer, uttered the phrase before bypassing every safety protocol and manually piloting the ship through a collapsing star corridor, delivering critical medical supplies just moments before the star imploded. A human scientist, denied authorization to test an experimental quantum reactor, said the phrase, activated the prototype anyway, and successfully generated enough energy to power an entire moon. The reactor remained stable for exactly 11 minutes before it collapsed into a micro-singularity. The moon survived. The lab did not. By the time the Galactic Council noticed the pattern, it was too late to dismiss it. The phrase appeared harmless, linguistically simple, culturally ambiguous, but its consequences were anything but. Every recorded instance shared 3 consistent outcomes. A human initiated an action outside established safety parameters. The action succeeded beyond all predicted limits. Catastrophic or near-catastrophic consequences followed immediately after. The Council commissioned a cross-species task force to investigate. They called it the Human Behavioral Anomaly Project. Unofficially, it was known as HBAP. More informally, among those who had reviewed the recordings, it was simply called "Don't Let Them Say It." Dr. Alaris Venn, a senior xenopsychologist, was among the first to propose a theory. "It is not just a phrase," she explained during a closed council briefing. "It is a cognitive trigger." She projected a compilation of recorded incidents, each one beginning with the same words. When a human says, "Hold my beer," they are signaling a shift in behavioral state. Risk tolerance spikes. Inhibitory processes are suppressed. Creativity and improvisation surge to unprecedented levels. A council member from the Sarathi Collective leaned forward. "You are describing recklessness." Alaris shook her head. "No, recklessness implies ignorance of risk. Humans are fully aware of the danger. They proceed anyway." "Why?" Alaris paused. "Because they believe they can succeed." Further research revealed something even more unsettling. The phrase did not originate from a place of necessity. It came from challenge. Humans used it when faced with doubt, especially from others. It was not just about solving a problem. It was about proving that the problem could be solved, regardless of the cost. The turning point came during the Virex incident. The Virex system housed a volatile neutron star whose magnetic field had begun destabilizing nearby colonies. The Galactic Council deployed its most advanced containment array, an intricate network of gravitic anchors designed to stabilize stellar anomalies. It failed. Within hours, evacuation protocols were initiated across 3 inhabited planets. Billions of lives were at risk. The Council prepared to abandon the system. That was when a human fleet arrived. Not a military fleet. Not a scientific delegation. A group of independent contractors. Salvagers. Engineers. Pilots. People who, by all official metrics, should not have been involved in a crisis of this scale. At their helm was Captain Lena Ortiz. Her transmission to the Council was brief. "You're doing it wrong," she said. The Council's response was immediate. "You are not authorized to intervene." Lena smiled, a gesture many species still found unsettling. "Yeah," she said, "that sounds about right." There was a pause. Then she turned to her crew and said the words that would later trigger a system-wide panic. "Hold my beer." What followed was chaos. Human ships broke formation, diving directly toward the neutron star. They ignored established flight paths. They bypassed safety corridors. They began constructing a new containment structure, not by replacing the existing array, but by augmenting it in real time. They welded components together mid-flight. They used their own ships as temporary anchors. They rerouted power through systems never designed to handle such loads. The Council watched in horror as every protocol was violated. "This is madness," one observer said. "No," Alaris whispered. "This is human." For 8 minutes, the system held. The neutron star's magnetic field began to stabilize. The evacuation ships slowed. Hope, fragile and unfamiliar, spread across the Council chambers. Then the first human ship exploded. Followed by another. And another. The makeshift structure began to collapse. "Abort," the Council commanded. The humans did not respond. Instead, Lena's voice came through the comms, calm and steady. "Almost there." In a final, desperate maneuver, the remaining human ships synchronized their systems, channeling every ounce of energy into the containment field. The star stabilized. The magnetic storms subsided. The Virex system was saved. Of the 23 human ships that entered the system, only 6 remained operational. Lena Ortiz's ship was not among them. The aftermath was complicated. The Council could not deny the results. Billions of lives had been saved. Entire worlds had been preserved. But the cost, and the method, were unacceptable by every known standard. The phrase was officially reclassified. No longer trivial, no longer irrelevant. It was designated as a level Omega behavioral trigger. A new protocol was established. Emergency Directive 7 Alpha. If a human is observed or heard initiating the phrase, "Hold my beer," all nearby personnel are to initiate immediate containment or evacuation procedures. The directive spread quickly across the galaxy. Training simulations were updated. Translation matrices were modified to detect variations of the phrase across human dialects. Even approximate equivalents, "Watch this," "I got this," "This'll work," were flagged for caution. But the original phrase remained the most dangerous. Because it carried something the others did not. A certain confidence. Years later, Drive, Alaris then found herself on a remote research station orbiting a dying planet. The station's core reactor had failed. Backup systems were offline. Evacuation ships were delayed. The station would lose power within hours. Alaris and her team worked tirelessly to restore the reactor, but every attempt failed. The system was too damaged. Too unstable. It could not be repaired safely. That was when a human technician, assigned to maintenance duty, stepped forward. His name was Aaron Pike. He studied the reactor for a long moment, then looked at Alaris. "I think I can fix it," he said. Alaris felt a chill. "No," she replied immediately. "You cannot." Aaron tilted his head. "Why not?" "Because the system is beyond safe operational limits. Any attempt to restart it could." "I know," he interrupted. He reached into a storage locker and pulled out a small container. A beverage. Fermented. Primitive. Human. Alaris's eyes widened. "No," she said again, more urgently. "You must not." Aaron handed the container to a nearby crew member. "Here," he said. And then, with a faint grin, "Hold my beer." Alaris activated the emergency protocol instantly. Alarms blared. Crew members scrambled to evacuation pods. Containment fields powered up. But she did not leave. She couldn't. She watched as Aaron entered the reactor chamber. He bypassed security locks. He rerouted power manually. He rewired circuits with tools that should not have been sufficient for the task. Every reading on Alaris's console screamed failure. Overload. Meltdown. Catastrophic breach imminent. And yet, the reactor began to respond. Power levels rose. Stability metrics, impossible, unexplainable, started to climb. Alaris held her breath. For a moment, just a moment, it looked like he might succeed. Then the reactor surged. A blinding flash filled the chamber. Alaris shielded her eyes. When the light faded, the reactor stood silent. Smoke drifted through the air. The readings on her console, stabilized. Power output, nominal. Containment, intact. System status, operational. Alaris stared at the screen in disbelief. He had done it. Rescue ships arrived hours later. The station was saved. The crew survived. Aaron Pike did not. Alaris submitted her final report to the Galactic Council. It was concise, direct, and unlike her earlier work, it contained no attempt to explain the phenomenon in purely scientific terms. Instead, she wrote, "Humans possess a unique cognitive trait that allows them to achieve outcomes beyond established predictive models, particularly when operating under self-imposed challenge conditions." The phrase, "hold my beer," appears to act as a catalyst for this behavior. She paused before adding her final line. "It is not merely a warning. It is a promise." The Council updated the Directive one last time. Emergency Directive 7 Alpha revised. If a human initiates the phrase, "hold my beer," all nearby personnel must understand the following. Something impossible is about to become possible. And something safe is about to become very, very dangerous. Across the galaxy, the phrase became legendary. A symbol of both hope and fear. A reminder that humans, for all their unpredictability, had a way of changing the outcome, no matter the odds. Even if it meant breaking every rule in the process. Even if it meant not surviving the attempt. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of space, a group of human engineers gathered around a broken system. One of them picked up a drink, glanced at the others, and smiled. "All right," he said, "hold my beer." Far away, deep within the Galactic Monitoring Network, alarms began to ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.